Unmuted. Okay, good evening, Mount Vernon. We're gonna call this meeting of the Charter Revision Commission to order. It is November 20th at 6:08 PM, and we're going to do roll call.
Pamela Boyd,
Present.
David Rogers, present. Green Bell. Raquel Bennett. Rosary Blackwell Lawrence. Brian Dwyer. Anitra Hagley. Harry Kingsley.
Here.
Eileen Lambert.
Here.
Laura Slopes. Gita Morris.
Here.
Kevin Morrison. Kelly Pingram.
Here.
Monica Whiting Hogans. And running first name guy. Lorenike Williams. Stephen Vasquez. Axel Lieberman.
Yep.
Gabriel Thompson. Mike Christina.
Here.
Susan Lally.
Here.
Aaron McGarry. Donna Whipple. Kareem's on.
Participants or the other two?
Me and then Monica. That's the other two. And
Kareem, are you gonna take notes from afar or am I gonna do it here? Oh,
He said, are you
are
gonna
you gonna
take
take
notes?
notes? Or am I going to do it here?
You need to take notes because I'll be driving in about 5 minutes.
Okay, no problem.
So before we finish roll call, can the people, everyone else just note your presence?
Brian Johnson, Corporation Counsel. Howard, Mayor.
Sandra Hyacinth, citizen. President.
Can I ask a silly question?
Sure.
Do you have a quorum of members?
No. We only have 7.
Maybe.
We need 8,
And it has to be in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
8
so-
in a row.
All right, so we have an agenda. David's gonna start.
All right, so most of you have seen, I sent out the code of conduct. We have been talking about this before. It went out in September. Anyone who received the email who didn't sign their code of conduct, if they can sign it and get it back to me. Haven't signed it and you're in the room, I have a copy if you want to sign it and I can scan it and send it back to you. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm just going to read the opening paragraph because it's sort of important. The 2024 Charter Revision Commission is dedicated to maintaining a professional level of courtesy, respect, objectivity, and fairness in all commission's activities and communications. To that end, the commission adopts this code of conduct and members will commit themselves to adhering to the highest standards of conduct. So the rest of it's available to you online.
So, yeah, David is reading that and is re-upping, asking everyone to sign it because we are really trying to avoid having the meetings devolve into shouting and, back and forth. We want to try and stay on track. Everyone knows we have a relatively short amount of time in which to do the things that we're doing. And recognizing that, look, we're talking about things that are, can be pretty heavy. We're not all always going to agree, but we can disagree in a reasonable, courteous, professional way. Like I said in one of our first meetings, like I recommit to being careful, with my speech and about how I say things. And I'm asking all of us to do the same thing because none of us want to spend our free time doing what we did last meeting. I want to note the attendance of Tanesia Walters, who just walked in, a member of the public. So if you all could please, if you have not done so already, review the code of conduct, sign it, and get it back to David. That would be great.
May I make a comment?
Mhm.
I think it could be worthwhile for us to have a discussion on what we should do if things start to, because the code of conduct is great, but we all agreed to that a couple of months ago. So I'm wondering if we use this time to create a plan of like, okay, if things are devolving, we cut the meeting short. If things are devolving, then David's gonna step in and say, hey, here's the code of conduct. This is a reminder.
So that's exactly what we're gonna do.
Right. So not only that, but what would help is obviously, and we've been saying this for a while. Yeah, raise your hand and be recognized. Try not to speak over one another so we can all get the benefit of hearing, what you're saying. But on the extreme end, like we had the last meeting, on the extreme end, we all need to remember these are public meetings. Okay, and because they're public meetings, if our language gets too heated and too personal, you could be opening yourself up to potential defamation case. Because it's a public meeting, you're pretty much saying it to the public. So we don't want it to ever devolve to that area. So, let's just be courteous and keep it moving.
Can I add a comment too? Can we also have you said we're gonna talk about it a little bit more can we also disagree on some norms though too? Because I also think it's talking about the triggers to those moments before
Okay.
that I think set the stage and the tone for how a meeting goes left.
Mhm.
I think it's also what's allowed and then being asked to like let certain things go. So I think there's also not just signing a paper, but a commitment to meeting norms in a space where we're volunteering time as citizens.
Mhm.
But I also think there's just been some stuff that has just been left dangling that has either been misrepresentation of facts. And it can't be just let certain things go without it being addressed professionally or addressed even accurately and appropriately. So I think we are minimizing some of the triggering moments that have led to where meetings have gone. And that's what will always cause a moment of contention if we don't address like the elephant in the room, if we
Right.
don't address the triggering points, or if things are left open inaccurately, that has to be addressed. And it can't be addressed in a, passive aggressive way, especially when something is said and spoken dead on.
Okay. So,
So we don't have to beat a dead horse, but I don't think it's simply just signing off on a document because as, she stated, we signed this document before we are all adults and tax-paying citizens and volunteering our time, but there are some meeting norms that are not adhered to that we have to also make sure we are clear on.
Okay. So maybe corporate counsel Johnson can help me with this one. Technically, under different circumstances, I would say our personal issues amongst the committee, we would go into executive session. So we're out of hearsay of the public, but I don't think we can do that. Because that's not one of those things that executive session is designed for. So what I would suggest is if something like that happens, then what we do is we get through the agenda and as soon as we shut the meeting down, we proceed to discuss amongst ourselves whatever the issues are. Because like I said, the most damaging piece of this is, if it goes too far in the public space, like I say, you're potentially opening yourself up to liability, and we don't want that for anyone.
I think the simplest way is just to, adhere to meeting norms, right? There's a
Exactly.
chair, the chair recognizes people, and then if someone, the chair has the control over the meeting. And if not, if a person gets too volatile and disruptive of the meeting,
Shut the meeting down, like, right.
you can ask them to leave. I mean, the whole purpose, I mean, if you're beyond acting through the conduct of the meeting, you're just becoming disruptive for the
Yeah.
extent of being disruptive.
Yeah.
As I say to the department head, you can, people can protest, but it doesn't mean they can protest out in front of your office. They go outside
Right.
and protest, but that doesn't mean they can interfere with the conduct of city business.
And just to give further clarity to give more piggybacking right off that, it can't be allowed that certain things are said and then the response to that is shut down. When things should have been maybe stopped in the moment that it was happening to not escalate. So people have human responses to certain things that are said, because I think there's not a meeting norm of saying there's a disruption, this needs to stop in this moment. Not 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, when people have been now responding to a feeling of disrespect, an inappropriate comment, a misrepresentation of facts, and then the response gets shut down. But the initial comment, the initial situation was allowed to go on. So meeting norm is, this is off context, someone's been asked to stop, they're not stopping, we pause the meeting. Setting an establishment, saying here, what is the establishment of not letting something continue? And it's becoming escalated. So that, again, just think about what that would look like, but I think some moments.
Yeah.
Are long.
I don't think we're allowed to actually pause a meeting and then come back.
Well, I suppose if you want to.
I mean, if we had,
To go into a recess.
right, I'm saying we can, so.
I don't see it as a prohibition, but to the more general, right? Everyone is here to serve a purpose, right? And the chair has a responsibility and a delicate one. And it's a hard job, right? You have to balance between allowing a person to speak and then chilling speak. It's a very difficult job. And I wouldn't want to be the chair, right? But so, we're gonna just have to see that everyone is gonna act as adults. And if a particular person, for instance, are coming in and being disruptive of the conduct of the business, then we'll take a look at it.
I was just gonna say, I think.
Yeah, because is the meeting gonna, I mean.
Yeah, no,
I'm
it's-
assuming the chair will want to.
We will, if it happens, hopefully it won't. If everyone stays, not only on topic, but once again, being careful on what they say, then hopefully we won't have the issue. If the issue happens, we'll deal with it when it happens.
And balanced with dealing with it when it happens.
When it happens, we can stop, recess, and you individuals can hash it out.
There you go.
Oh, right.
No, I was just going to say there is a lot of vague comments being made. And I think if it's an issue, which clearly it's on the agenda, it's an issue or has been an issue or was an issue, or whether, I didn't see a lot of it, but I know there was some things that were said or done, not necessarily done. I don't think, so I think if we feel we need to probe more, we should get through our agenda, and then there should be.
Well, that's right.
Offline
Right.
to discuss specifics. If you feel that as the chairs, that's necessary, then do that. But all this vague talk means nothing to me. And I'm not sure it means much to anyone else.
Look, I think the takeaway is we all need to try and conduct ourselves a little better during these meetings, take more care with what we say and how we react, assuming the
Always.
best about people. I think I'm gonna ask that if you're upset about something, address me don't address one another. I think that'll help.
Right.
And we will absolutely think about what you said about whether or not there are any very specific meeting norms we can put into place that everyone knows about, that is something a step above. When it happens, we just say, stop, take a breath, we're gonna step aside.
And putting together meeting notes, because half this committee is also not here. So we're talking about it with half the room. So I think there needs to be some meeting norm maybe sent out so that we are all adhering to it and all get the same messaging, but half the room is only here too. So let me know if I need to be any more specific. I can also
Nope.
move up some
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, that's our constant struggle, though.
Yeah,
In
right,
terms of
but
getting,
half
in
the room.
terms of getting, yeah, in terms of getting attendance. Yes, sir.
Just within this context, one thing that I want to also mention, right? We're here to do something. We're here for a purpose.
Mhm.
And I would encourage everybody to put their ego second, right? To the purpose of what we're trying to do here. One thing that I also have to mention, there will be people who say things that you don't like, right? Everybody still has a First Amendment. Nobody in this room has the right to play the word police. So if you feel like somebody's mentioning something that is wrong, out of context, address it specifically and ask that person what they mean by it. It might just be misunderstood, but also understand just because you are offended by something somebody says doesn't mean you are right, right? And doesn't mean you have the right to police their speech.
Well, but also, if you find yourself feeling offended, you're upset, again, address it to me. And we will see if we can hash it out. And if we can't, I think that's the time to stop and have a different conversation
Yes.
that is outside of, what we're doing.
Understandable, but if there's a public issue and when you're being asked for it to be responded to privately.
So that's why, so in public, if you find yourself getting upset about it, I'm saying address it to me. What we're trying to avoid is, he said something that pissed me off and now I'm yelling at him and he's yelling back at me. That's what we're trying to avoid. If we can't hash it out after it's addressed to me, then we stop. You will have been heard, just not in the way it came off at the last meeting. So not suggesting that your response gets squashed, but your response is addressed to me or to him, like whichever one of us is here.
Right. And one of the things that I had suggested, and at least, some of you are here, one of the things I suggested after our last meeting to get us past this point was that since our last meeting earlier this month was going to be canceled, I said, if you had an issue and you all wanted to come together and talk or at that designated time, then let me know. I got nothing from anyone. I'm just saying. So, but with that said, I think we all understand what we need to do and we'll take it as it goes along. So, moving on.
All right. So, we had the 4 subcommittees. So far, the only subcommittee to come out with recommendations is mine. And I don't know who else here was on that committee. I believe that your committee, led by Anitra, you're going to have recommendations, but you do not believe that your recommendations require a ballot initiative. They're just things that we can present as changes to council. Do you know if that's correct?
Well, I'm an advisor to the group, not directly on the committee. And I have to say that there has not been very much communication after a couple of interviews. I think Eileen you're on the committee as well and a member of the charter. So maybe Eileen can answer that question better than I
Do
can.
you know, Eileen?
We need to come together as a committee and say what our formal recommendation is. We talked informally of sorts about what we were looking to recommend. And we just need to come together as a committee with our formal recommendation. Again, after our meeting took a left and right and U-turn last time, I think everybody just paused on, because there were some different thoughts about what we had proactively, informally spoke about what our recommendation was going to be, but we need to come back as a subcommittee to present what our formal recommendation will be. So we've done the work, we all have a similar thought process, at least those on the commission part. We just have to put it in formal recommendation for you.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, for anybody who's following, can you kind of say what your committee was and what committee we're talking about now?
Yeah.
Because someone may not
Understand, yeah.
I'm just.
no, you're fine. So I actually do not have my spreadsheet in front of me. So there were 4 committees. You have it. They were divided up and assigned different sections of the charter. Ours looked at the electoral process, city council, basically sort of the executive level, legislative level, and some other sort of general things that didn't fit anywhere else. There was, you want that? Oh, thank you. Okay, so there was a committee that looked primarily at finance and sections of the charter that relate to finance. They did not have recommendations. There was a committee we call Governance and Elections. That was my committee. There was Human Resources, Social Services, and some miscellaneous sections that also didn't fit anywhere else. That was Mary Kingsley's committee. And then there was Anitra and Eileen's committee, which we call Public Services, Public Works. So, like I said, finance did not turf up anything, right? At least nothing that they thought requires a resolution.
Well, no, just clarity on that. I think the things that covered in the green team, which is the team that you led, which the biggest thing was about the controller piece. So it felt redundant because you guys had kind of like mapped it out. So we were in agreement with that from what I recall. And there really wasn't anything else up under that space that we felt would be resolution worthy.
Okay, that was Karine and David's committee. We talked about Anitra and Eileen's committee. They just need to firm some things up. Mary's committee.
It's not really my committee, but we had a lot of illness and departure in our committee. And we really haven't gotten together at all. I haven't received anything from anyone else, even though I didn't really want to be heading it up. But as I was reading it, I didn't think that the issues that we see in there were so pressing that they would supersede the other subcommittees. I think have far greater gravitas than anything that's included in mine. And we had to have that conversation.
Yeah, so I was gonna try and go back through and,
I mean, there's something like there's things like parking lots are under the Department of Recreation. I mean, I don't know why that's there, but it doesn't hardly seem to be something that rises to the level of other things.
So the entire charter is sort of a wreck. It's way too long, it's not well organized, and frankly, given the time, we scrap the whole thing and probably start from, the model charter and add things back in. We actually had Susan who was working on something like that. But obviously that's an enormous project. I did do a rewrite of the charter section that requires something like that. But there is so much there that could get done. Like there's no way that was getting done this go round. So there are a lot of things like that.
Could theoretically one of the, because we're going to revisit this every single time we have a charter revision commission, right? It was obviously also an issue last time. Leads to 2 things. Number one is confusion. It's all over the place. It's unbalanced. Also makes charter vision itself harder because you have to go through all that mumbo jumbo and make sense of it. Could potentially one of the ballot proposals or one of the stipulations of this body be that there's an allotted time frame. Let's say part of the mandate is to modernize and bring the charter in line with a standard charter within the next, let's say, 4 years or something. Just give it a realistic time frame. And maybe that is something that needs to be done. So, because otherwise we're just gonna kick
It
this.
has been. So that's what I meant when I said
Oh,
the
excellent.
charter section is rewritten
Yeah.
to include that. So, you know, we're trying to feel out whether or not that's something that could happen in city council or whether or not that requires a ballot initiative, but it is there. Like the language is in there. And some of the other things that sort of didn't make sense about this process, like holes that we saw in this process from trying to go through it are in there too.
So just if I could also note that one of the challenges with charter revision commissions is there's 2 election cycles to get the work done. And generally, that's less than 2 years. And for us, it's been maybe 1.5 years. So it is a very tight schedule to do it. And I don't know if in that rewrite of having to look at the charter that it's a date is given that one needs to be formed, you know, within whatever.
Oh,
15 days.
there is, but I cannot remember what it is.
Okay.
It was in
To
discussion.
maximize the amount of time that the
Amount.
commission has.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was in discussion with National Civic League. I don't remember what it is. I was actually waiting for their comments on it and I will distribute it, but I want to get their comments on it first. And National Civic League, for people who don't know, is like a 100-year-old entity that works with cities to help with good governance and things like that. We got them on board and they've been helping us through this process.
Mhm.
All right, so those final the final presentation, we're gonna ask that those be done by the December 4th meeting. Eileen.
So yeah, one of the things we should just ask all the committees, just to go back through your notes from your committee, just to make sure you don't have anything. If you do, once again, be prepared to talk about it at the December 4th meeting. Also, at least I know you and I have attended other meetings of other groups. So you can go back through our notes as well. Yeah, like we were on there, I was on their call. No, okay, so, well, I was on y'all call, at least for some of them, so, and I've given some feedback to Anitra, one of the writers that we may want to include, but, so anyone who has anything, just be prepared to present it on December 4th.
Okay, and the last thing that we wanted to talk about was outreach, and outreach materials. I am still waiting. Well, I shouldn't say I'm still waiting. NCL did produce for me some surveys, but I asked them to go back and redo them. And so they are working on that now. As soon as I get those, I will send them out. Remember, those are the surveys that we're going to put on our website and we're going to ask to go on other websites. They're the things that they're arranging so that when we go out and talk to, different community groups, we can do that live surveying that they did when they came here to talk to us about how to engage different community groups. I'm finally starting to hear back from some of those groups. So ultimately, what we're going to do is probably break into maybe 3 teams with people assigned to 3 teams, one led by me, one led by David, one led by Karine, and we'll assign groups to those teams. And when we have the surveys, once we have the surveys and we can talk about all of the work, we will also ask you guys, like if there is a group that, you are familiar with that you think we should talk to let us know about those, and we'll start arranging those meetings. So I have here, and I do not have enough for everyone, but I will send these out in email. I had a conversation with the NCL, and if you guys want, we can have them come back and talk to us about this, about what community outreach and civic engagement should look like for something like the Charter Commission. So that letter is on top. I will send this out. And then also in this packet are a bunch of informational sort of flyers. You'll notice that there are 2 of each. The one that's in the dark color is actually in color. It's the exact same thing that's in black and white. It's just one plays better online and one doesn't. So 2 were done. I am just ready to share these because I also wanted NCL's input on these. So these are post NCL. Now, these are only the things that came out of our committee, right? Because that's all we have thus far. So remember, those things are, should Mount Vernon have a chief administrative officer? Should elected officials have term limits? Should the comptroller be appointed instead of elected? Should Mount Vernon have nonpartisan elections? And should council members be elected by wards or at large? So these are informational sheets about those things. So I just want to give you an opportunity, you guys something I have to share, to look at these, and I will send them out. I am going to send them out. But this is the kind of thing that we would look to do for any thing that might become a ballot initiative. And use as like handouts to help inform the public about what it is we're talking about, what we're doing, what we're asking their opinions on, that kind of thing. The hope is that we would have any additional materials by December 18th. What we would like to do is, because what we would like to do is after that time, have NCL start loading up their surveys and start getting the public to respond to those surveys, start the process where we are going out to talk to people in the community in advance of, and their recommendation is that we spend several months doing that in advance of then scheduling the big meetings where we ask them to come to us and we talk more about.
Who's them?
Them, the public.
Okay.
Right, so we schedule them, you know, in different places, right, around the city, and we ask, you know, your 800 people, for example, in Fleetwood, to come out and listen to us talk.
Don't count on it.
Well, I'm being.
No, I know.
But we would like to start, like, it makes no sense to try and start that now with Thanksgiving and then Christmas and then New Year's. But ideally, we would start doing that in January, and not a lot of people like to come out in the snow. And that's why, you know, we're going to use that opportunity to go to people.
So let me ask you about the survey. Will it be, there will be a link to some survey program? And will they be able to make sure that one person can't do it 10 times? Do we have?
So they have a mechanism for doing that, and they being NCL, they're going to run them. And they said that they do have a mechanism for doing that. Like it's not 150 proof. And I think the way they plan to do them, and the number of them that they're going to do, they said they have a way of crunching the numbers afterwards to figure that out. So I'm going to trust them.
Okay.
Because I have to, because I have no idea.
No, I know, but that is the one thing that concerns me about surveys that, you know, the city has done from time to time for comprehensive plan. And the last survey, it seems like you could do it as many times as you want. And, you know, that doesn't give us good information.
Yeah. We did raise that, and they felt like they could Not fully, but enough
Some
to feel
controls.
like the information, right, is dependable.
Now, it's going to be anonymous, or did they, I mean, is there a possibility that you ask somebody to put their name on it, or is
So-
that something we want to avoid?
The ones right up front are anonymous. We discussed having some of the later ones after people get comfortable with the process. Because remember, we're going to be doing this for a few months in advance of the meetings. When people are comfortable with the process, asking them for certain kinds of information. I don't think the name is one of them, but certain kinds of information that they could use as identifiers.
Okay.
So the survey's going to who again?
They're going on websites, and if we can manage it shot out in emails, if we can get emails, however we can.
So
get them out.
so for instance, the Fleetwood Neighborhood Association has a mailing list. We'll get the link and then we'll send out to our mailing list and ask them to take the survey.
Yep, I mean, we will be asking the city to send them out, so however we can get them out, we'll get them out.
And this, we're going to do before the in-person meeting. So during the winter, once you have the subjects and the survey questions complete, you would then look to start sending those out?
What?
Yeah, but
So in other words, I know you said that with the holidays coming, are you waiting till after the holidays to even send
Not
the
for the
surveys out?
surveys,
No,
no, I'm.
So that was
waiting-
my question.
Right, no, I want them to get the surveys
Understandable.
done, so we can start getting the surveys going.
Okay.
And so we at least have some of the initial ones before we go out talking to people. Now, it's in my mind, the initial talking is really about, what is a charter? What are you guys doing? Who are you? Like, how are you chosen? Why should we care about this? So for example, I had a conversation with the Elks Club Saturday, I think. No, I don't know, Monday. Thank you. It was very early in the morning. And it wasn't a detailed conversation, but it was about, this is what a charter is, here are the parts of it, here's what it generally covers, here's why you should care about the charter, here's how you can get involved. And then they had some questions. And that was it. Like, I expect some of the initial meetings to be like that, because a lot of people have no idea
Right.
even what this is.
So we coming up with this, I'm just going back a little bit. We're gonna come up with the questions together as a committee and land on,
The survey questions?
yeah.
NCL's coming up with the survey questions based on a bunch of material that I've given them. When they have that, I'm gonna distribute them. If you have some issues or questions about them, that would be the time to raise it.
Right, so they're gonna come up with some recommendations, and us as a committee are gonna norm on what we're good with all sending out to the community. So they're making a recommendation to us as a committee, what questions we're gonna ask the community.
They are recommending what they think are the questions that should go on this survey. I mean, we can get them and see. I can't imagine what the problem would be with them, but yeah, if you have a problem with them, if anyone on the committee has a problem with them, we should raise it.
No, not a problem, just.
Right.
Just looking
Question
like,
about process.
just questions, like, so, like, we are the commission that's been formed, right? We're sending these questions out in the vein of us as the commission, right? So these are coming, I'm just trying to understand the flow of how this is going. These questions are going to the community as if they're coming from us as a commission, correct?
Mhm.
Right, so I'm saying, are we as a commission going to norm on like, oh yes, these questions tackle what you submitted to them? I'm not sure if it's what you submitted or if it's just stuff that we've been talking through, but are we gonna norm as a committee that these are the questions, like what they came up with? We all are good, we don't have any questions or anything we want to add or adjust. I'm not using the word problem because problem has a connotation that is not.
We will make sure that we're all good with the questions that are going out.
Ahead of time.
Oh yeah, nothing's gonna go out. I haven't even seen the final questions yet. You guys will see the final questions as soon as I see the questions, and then we will talk about them.
Gotcha.
So-
Because the reason why I'm asking, I think some of the conversation we had last meeting, and I just want to make sure, not one of these meetings, that are we I think we were first talking about what we would bring into the public and norming on that. So I just want to make sure we're still aligned, that we are aligned in the thought and flow. Sounds all good, packaged different ways, but I just want to make sure we as a commission are aligned with the flow because we're all attached to it. So not necessarily a problem with it, but just being able to norm and set the expectation because it's coming from us as a unit.
So we were talking about something different last time, and I'm not sure that we're all in agreement on that, right? So last time we were talking about what we would educate the public on.
This is not it.
Right? Not the surveys. No, the surveys are just, hey, what do you public think about, there are some of the questions are fairly and not, what a charter is, like what's your experience? Do you feel like there is transparency, enough transparency in the city? What could, the city do to be more transparent? How do you, what do you rate your experience with like these different departments of the city? So the questions are like trying to get at the public's pain points. The questions are not about what we educate the public on. And where we were having a disagreement was what we educate the public on. I still maintain that we don't gatekeep. I'm not going to gatekeep what we tell the public. So 5 things came out of our committee. I want to educate the public about those 5 things. I want to hear what they think about those 5 things. And that's the kind of thing that would happen at the later meetings after we make sure they even understand what the heck we're doing here.
Gotcha. So the questions I'm reading here align with some of the things that we were in disagreement about. So I just want to make sure that the questions here are not what's going out in the survey.
These are not survey questions.
Okay. And then even that, yes, we all had differing thoughts about the approach to that. But I want to make sure that when we are together as a commission, I think it's a conversation about what does the majority feel and going with that it's not an individual like approach to it. So I just want to make sure that we're taking a diplomatic approach to what we are bringing to the public and every voice is heard. And then as with any committee team, where everybody has equal voice, that whatever the consensus is what we agree to land on. So I just want to make sure we're still aligned as far as how we're getting to what those meetings would look like, what's going out to the public. I just want to, it's maybe not for discussion right now, but I'm just restating that what we are agreeing to and aligning on as a committee, even if there's some differing thoughts. What's the majority feeling?
Excellent.
Quick question, just in terms of the timeline. So you mentioned December 4th is basically 5 presentations, correct? So after that, we should most probably have a comprehensive list of all of the recommendations of all of the individual conditions. Is that correct?
Mhm. But they're the only additional ones, as I understand it, would be anything that comes from Anitra and Eileen's team.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. It's just, but that is basically our deadline for finalizing a list of possible recommendations.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to be that
Yeah,
in
no.
stone about it, right? Because if something comes up, let's say something bubbles up from us talking to people,
Right.
right? And we think, you know what, this is something important enough that we should reconsider. Then I don't think that we should not be able to do that because we've said that's the drop dead. That's the drop dead for us.
Yeah, no, that's what.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty much the way this is being laid out. Right now, the only information, including what's in the packet, are things that we've come up with based on the commission's interactions with, the commissioners, city council, and other members of the administration. That's it. That's part 1. Part 2 will be feedback from the public. So we're going to do that through surveys and meetings. Those things may or may not align with what we came up with. If they do, then fine, we can keep what we have. If they don't, then that's something new that needs to be added before we get to that final vote on what goes on.
So let me just check my understanding. I thought we were actually still norming on even bringing anything to the public and even what we were bringing to the public. I thought there was differing thoughts.
Okay, when you say, I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. When I talk about what we're going to bring to the public, I'm talking about ballot initiatives. That's the only time I'm talking about bringing something to the public for a decision. In terms of information exchange, there is no cutoff or there's no decision in terms of what information gets exchanged.
No, I'm not talking about that. I think what you had said was like surveying the public,
Right.
not the ballot recommendations.
Right.
So speaking specifically to what you mentioned about surveying the public, and correct my understanding, I don't think we normed on a committee about even surveying the public. So not to say that's not where we go, but anybody please correct my
I'm
understanding.
going
I
to
don't think we normed
decipher
on that.
this conversation if I could.
Please.
Because we're going around in circles. And there's clearly a difference of opinion from Eileen and possibly Anitra. On what
Let's not,
Let's not, yeah.
We're not here, and
All right, then I'm not going to decipher it.
And
That's-
and I actually want to say that I don't need what I said deciphered. I said it very clear in plain English. I don't need to be deciphered.
Okay, here
I'm
we go.
asking a very specific question
Yes.
that can have a very specific answer.
So
I don't need translation or interpretation,
That-
with all due respect.
All right, so this is it. In terms of the survey questions that we're going to get from the CO. Their survey questions, the general ones that they present to us, are questions based on their years of experience of doing this, right? Once we see those questions, we may have some additional ones that are more unique or that we may feel are more unique to Mount Vernon
So,
to ask.
mhm.
I'm saying just a question piece. So once those questions are gathered, now, it's our understanding, we will look at them, but we're not going to necessarily say, I mean, we can say, okay, well, that's a good question, that one's redundant, something like that, and then decide on what the survey is. So I'll pause there.
Correct. So please correct my understanding. What was previously said is that they came up with this based off of information that you gave them. What I'm hearing being said now is that they came up with this based off their year's experience. So
Oh, no,
They
we're
came,
talking about two different things.
no.
that's why I said correct my understanding, because
I sent them, I said, look, we want to survey the public. Here is the kind of thing that I'm interested in seeing. Based on that and their years of experience, they are sending surveys back to me. When I get those, I will send them out to all of us as a commission. We can look at them and talk about them and see if there are anything, changes, additions, or whatever that we want to make. If what you're asking is whether or not we're going to vote on whether or not to do the surveys, that is not in my plan.
Gotcha. So I just want to be clear. Even though we have some disagreement and we still have open conversation about even surveying the public, you submitted some questions for them to survey the public, but I don't remember us norming on that being the next as a commission. If that's what liberty you took as chair, then I understand that and we'll take it as what it is. But I thought it was still open about even surveying the public, and we had some disagreement and table and had not landed on that. Also, we have not presented as committees, like subcommittees, on even what our findings and recommendations are as subcommittees. So even what was sent to them is not based off of anything that was submitted as a formal recommendation from our subcommittees. So I'm just trying to understand and being clear in languaging, which if it is what it is, it is what it is, and I'll respect the seat of the chair. But I just want to make sure I'm hearing languaging correctly, in that even though we did not norm on even surveying to the public yet, which is where we might end up going, we did not, I didn't think we normed on that. Maybe I missed part of the meeting. I didn't think we normed on even surveying the public, and they were given information as if we had normed on it.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
it's two
didn't
different-
realize
two different
that,
things.
yeah, two different things. I did not even realize there was an issue with surveying the public. Again, I think we are talking about two different things. I thought the issue was whether or not we would present everything that we've been talking about to the public, not whether or not we would take the public's temperature on pain points for the public. And so that's, hang on, that's what their surveys are. And so, yeah, I sent them information and requested that because as the chair, we can say that it's me as a chair, don't see how we don't do that. But, definitely going to have a discussion about what comes back from them. That is completely separate from the issue that I thought was being raised, at the last meeting and previously about what we told the public we were talking about.
Yeah, then I would say we probably need to go back to the understanding of that last meeting, because this is actually where the point of contention started at the last meeting, where because we had differing thoughts about what we were bringing to the public, or even bringing certain things to the public, that's where actually the discourse came from, and was the heat, how it even went left. So I'm just a little confused as to how we landed at still submitting survey stuff, when part of what led to that last meeting was this exact topic about what we're bringing to the public, if we're bringing anything to the public. Because I think we were talking about asking the public what they think we should present on the ballot without first saying,
No.
we haven't even normed yet.
No.
Yeah.
We
Haven't normed yet on what our recommendation was before asking the public. We're in this commission because we're supposed to be making recommendations to the public. So there was some back and forth conversations, and I thought we were gonna first move on that.
The surveys don't ask the public what they think we should be. And I think this is where we keep getting, cross wires. The surveys are not going to ask the public what they think we should offer ballot initiatives on. The surveys are asking and this is another reason why I'm confused about, thinking that we wouldn't survey the public, because part of the conversation we had, I don't think it was in the last meeting, but before, I was saying, look, let's wait until we get the surveys back from NCL, look at them and talk about them. And that was one of the things that I thought everyone understood and we agreed on. So just to be super clear, there's no scenario in my mind where we don't survey the public. What is on those surveys, I think we pass around and we talk about, and we make sure that we're all comfortable with it. But it doesn't involve asking them, hey, what do you want to see a ballot initiative on? It is, again, where are your pain points? And I keep using that because it's general. And I think when you see the survey questions, you will understand why I keep using that. Then there is an open question about, to even be specific, right? There are people who don't think that we should tell the public about the chief administrative officer, for example, as education, information. Here is one of the things that, is available that came out of our conversations with people that could address some issues. Here is what that is. Here's what that means. What do you think about it, right? I personally do not see a scenario where we don't tell people that. And I thought the issue in the last meeting was there was a thought that, no, we shouldn't tell them that, because what if that doesn't make it to a ballot initiative? And the whole purpose of this, and this is sort of what the letter from NCL says, the whole purpose of this process is to let people know, inform them, let them give you their opinions about what they think, because that should, when we sit down to vote about what should be a ballot initiative, that should play into it, what they think and what they said. And they can only do that if they're informed about that. So, I think the goal of this commission should be to make sure that when the public walks into, the ballot box or whatever the heck is going to be by November 2025 and flip over their ballot and they see these initiatives, they understand exactly what they are. They are making informed decisions. Is it possible that, a majority of them will look at what's there and say, maybe I don't want that. Yeah, it is. But if that decision is informed because we did our jobs.
Look, we actually are saying the same thing, but the point I'm just trying to make is that we did not norm as a committee about what we were bringing to the public. We did not norm on that. That was really what the discourse was last meeting. We haven't even formally presented as our subcommittees to this larger committee. So it wasn't that we were saying that that was where we were going to land as a committee, as a charter commission, that we were going to land on not informing the public. That's not what we were communicating. What we were communicating is we have not made a formal recommendation to our commission at large yet. We still had our subcommittee meetings that everybody wasn't sitting in when we met with the different commissioners, when we met with the different city administrators, you know, across Westchester. Everybody wasn't part of those meetings. And my understanding was that we as a subcommittee were going to put together, hence we just said we're going to meet together to put our formal recommendation together. It's almost a moot point, because what I'm saying is what we did not norm on was what we were recommending as a subcommittee to our larger charter commission, norming on that, and then deciding as a commission what we were going to bring to the public for discussion. So what is happening now is this organization is bringing back to put this together without the formal recommendation from the subcommittee, which we still might, as a larger committee, decide to go against, not against, but do different than what the subcommittee's recommendation is. And that will be fine, but at least the subcommittee got to present what our recommendation is. We're 5 people. The larger commission might say, thank you for the recommendation. We still feel like we need to bring it differently to whatever. And then the larger commission decides that. That's not what happened.
Okay, so this is where the disconnect is. All right. This is a draft document on what, once we decide what the points are, this is what it would look like. This isn't final.
It's not final, but this was already sent to this company to get us back.
Because they're working with us. Not, this is not directly tied to the survey. This is a separate, this would be our material outreach portion. Survey is one thing. The survey is a bunch of questions about pain points. That's one piece, right? From that survey, based on feedback from our internal meetings, the information that our groups will present, final groups will present on the 4th. Once we have that, right? So basically,
Like, these are the recommendations.
basically
from
her
our
group is done.
subcommittee.
Her group is done, right? So her group has already done their work. And this is, you know, when we're talking about the outreach portion that's due on the 18th, the outreach material portion, this is what potential outreach material would look like from any of our groups. None of this has gone anywhere.
That's not from any of our groups. That's from one.
No. I'm saying this is what it would look like from any of our groups. So let's say your group had one on, I believe, like the one I sent, Nita was on planning, a recommendation about how the city does the planning department, how it runs. So if that was one of the things, let's say, make sure that planning is involved with the final decisions with buildings and whoever else, the mayor or city council, before decisions made on a new project, right? Something that's not done now, but it's what we found during our conversation that should be done because it would help with the overall process. Let's say that's one, right? That we would reduce, if we decided that was one, we would reduce it to something that looked like this. And that's all this is. This isn't something that was handed, right, something that was handed to NCL to say, here, write survey questions about this. That's not what happened.
Because I think that the problem with looking at this here makes one think that the recommendations from one subcommittee have been accepted and put forward.
No. This is
But that's
right.
what it looks like.
I understand, and that's what I.
That's all I wanted to know. Like, we were handed this document. I'm just trying to understand what is this
And
document?
it's
for?
unfortunate,
This is
these are the choices
not- Correct.
Well, no,
of
what she,
samples because
It's,
because this is the work from one subcommittee.
Right, but we-
Everyone has, and we'll sit there and. yeah.
So, but the finish that I'm going to try to say is, but the point is that the work of the subcommittee will come forward and does not the commission then say, yes, we agree or no, we don't? Or is the work of the subcommittee the end product, period, and we all buy that?
Again, it depends on what, and I think, again, this is where I think the disconnect is. It depends on what you say you're agreeing or disagreeing about. Because if what you're saying is you disagree that we should inform the public about these.
No, I'm talking about these.
So
Yeah,
that's what this
that's
is.
right.
Oh, no.
If you're saying we should not inform.
I'm saying-
If you're saying we should not inform
That's
the
not what I'm
public
saying.
about the, no, I'm not saying, I'm saying, if you're saying we should not inform the public about these options, then that's what. But in terms of agreeing what we take to the public, that's different.
That's not what I was.
I'm saying that, and again, this may simply be a sample. But the sample makes it appear as if this is what we're going to propose as an action for the Charter Commission.
Okay, when you say action for charter,
That we would say that this is what we want to move forward with.
We submitted to an external organization, right?
this didn't go to the, in terms
No,
of,
this did go to
Did go to-
NCL, but you're calling them an external, they're hired to work with us to help us make sure we're explaining things in a way that is
I understand.
accessible to the public. This does not mean that these are going to be valid initiatives.
Right, that's what I'm
Right,
saying.
it's not
We should all
problematic that
agree on
it's-
what would be the
that's right.
valid initiative.
And we will.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So this does, I don't understand and I want to, because I want to address it, the issue that you have with this going to NCL. NCL is working.
I can re-explain, right? And I'm sorry if I'm frustrated, but I want to give a level of clarity. I thought that what we would send to them, we have how many subcommittees for?
Wait, who's them? The NCL? Okay,
NCL.
yes.
What I would think that we would have sent to NCL, so let me go back a little bit. Don't have a problem with any recommendation about what we, like, we're not withholding any recommendation, withholding anything back from the community. We are the community. We pay taxes. We are not trying to hold anybody back, hold information back from our fellow citizens, because we are all impacted by that. So I just want to make sure I'm changing that narrative or conversation.
Yeah.
Asking questions does not mean, I'm very clear on word choice. We are not talking about withholding anything. What I'm talking about is being strategic and being aligned on what we are presenting to the public. So I'm not using the word withholding. I'm talking about us aligning as an appointed commission on what we are presenting. So what I'm saying and what I'm trying to understand here is something was sent to NCL that was just a sub-function right now. Not all the data from all of our subcommittees for them to then come back and say, here's what I've taken from your 4 subcommittees. And here's the recommendation for what the questions, what will look like. They are just.
Would it help?
Hold on, don't interrupt.
Okay.
Let's let her finish.
What I'm saying is, I would have thought that once we make our recommendations and submit our formal recommendations as subcommittees, those recommendations would have been sent to them for them to give us back what they devised from those recommendations. It sounds like just part of the things were given to them as opposed to the
Can I ask-
recommendations.
Did you say there would be surveys going out?
But hang
Yes,
on to
and
the-
it's just. Yes.
Because I just want to get this was not the basis for the surveys. They didn't even have this when they did the surveys. The surveys are about generally, when you're doing a charter revision process, like what do you want to know from the public? That's not what these are.
I'm just going by what's handed to us, and that's not what's written on here.
What on here says anything about surveys?
Go ahead.
So I'm just going to ask, would it help? And I guess this is a question for Eileen. Would it help if this one subcommittee came through with their report? Would it help to have the entire body of the commission vote to say, yes, those are issues that you've flushed out, and we agree we should ultimately educate the public on it? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, so
Even if we
maybe
agree
that's
to,
what
even if we
need
agree to
do.
disagree, I'm talking about simply as a commission, one unit, agreeing that this was what was gonna go out. It's 15 of us, it's whatever the majority, but just even the conversation, is what I was expecting.
And
It's already out.
It's not out. When you say out, when I think of out, I'm talking about out to the public.
No, I'm talking about the NCL has part of information that we did not know on as a committee.
Okay.
And I'm not saying withholding anything. I'm talking about norming on even what NCL got.
Okay.
And thank you for it now. I'm gonna leave this alone. I'm just stating it, that I would have thought as a unit that we would have just normed on even what they got. That's all.
Okay.
It is what it is.
All right, so
Wait,
this is,
hang on, because I want to give the public, you've been
Yes.
waiting, you had to say something for a while.
So as I'm listening and I'm new, just listening and learning, I wanted to comment on the survey. So what I think I heard you explaining about the survey is that in this process of charter revision and having a commission, you want to make sure that when you get to your level of ballot proposals, the public is informed and aware. And it sounds to me that the preliminary surveys you're talking about are just to find out what the public understands about the process. No specifics in terms of proposals or recommendations, but basically there is this idea of a charter revision in your city. You know, do you know anything about it? Like, what kinds of questions you have? And maybe more general type preliminary questions to gauge the level of awareness, so that then your commission will be able to, when you talk about your dissemination plan, you'll be better informed in terms of how you need to go about it and what types of information. I'm a resident for almost 40 years. I'm a taxpayer. I'm educated. I would want to be informed, just as it was done for the comprehensive plan. There was an opportunity to give input. I did not hear that the survey had anything to do with this, which I heard as a model of one subcommittee's putting out to this group what they had come to. So I don't know if that helps, but that's.
You know, I'm just going by what was, the biggest piece that triggered me is what's like, what.
No, I hear what you're saying. Did this group approve this to go to NCL? But I did not hear this being related to the surveys.
That's right.
all right,
I didn't hear that. I just didn't hear that. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
You're good.
yeah.
Okay.
So this is the other thing, and we can talk about this at, I guess we have December 4th and December 18th meeting. But one of the issues we have, our largest issue, is attendance. We can't even vote on anything without a quorum. So voting as a body, the clock is going to continue to tick. Okay. So voting as a body, we all need to sort of make sure that we can get our other commission members in attendance so we can actually make decisions as a body. So that's just in general. Anything we have to move on in terms of a vote requires a quorum. And we haven't had a quorum in a while. So just for information purposes.
It's true. It's a tough problem for sure. I mean, anytime you have a volunteer group that has multiple demands on their time, it's always a problem.
Yeah.
It's why often these groups end up falling to just a few people, as we experienced the last time. And why, we've been kind of like, don't make it all be me, So yeah, it's a problem. And I know I'm not going to be here the first week in December. I will be, or January, I'll be on a cruise. So yeah, it's hard. It's real hard. I don't know how you go about getting more people to come. We, in the previous time, had more meetings. And it seemed that helped because it was every single week, every single Tuesday or whatever it was.
But you will recall that when we talked about that in the beginning, people were adamant.
Well, I wasn't, yeah, but I'm just saying that when you get routinized to something,
Well, maybe you can,
it happens every week. Oftentimes
But this
it's
is only
easier.
this is only every other,
Oftentimes it's easier once you know that every Tuesday I do this, then is this the first Tuesday? Is this the third Tuesday? I don't know what Tuesday is this.
it's Wednesday, just saying.
Now go ahead.
No, so I'm just thinking that you kind of assign subgroups so to speak, where somebody calls and makes, people need to be called. They need to be reminded, and to not, it could be on the chair, could be on, I'm not saying it's,
I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay.
Because everything cannot be.
no, I
Don't,
wasn't,
no, me. Like,
Okay.
I
wasn't saying that though.
Okay.
I was saying that should have subgroups and,
there are, and the people were supposed to leave their subgroups. You
Okay.
can see how that turned out, right? Like, there is only so much.
all right, I'm not putting it on you. I believe you do more than your fair share. So please don't misunderstand me. So maybe that we just have to tell the chairs of the subcommittees that, please, you need to call your subcommittees once or twice before the meeting, within a week's time, to make sure we have a quorum. That's all.
I think this is a great opportunity for brainstorming, and we can just throw out a ton of ideas, see what sticks and see what doesn't. Like, for instance, one idea that might not stick is if we all go out to like happy hour after, or like, if there's more team bonding.
It's so good to have you on the committee.
Well, I do think that was part of the point I was making about having more frequent meetings. That when we did develop that camaraderie, I mean, you see Mike and I are like, he's like, give me a pen, throwing things out. We were on the same subcommittee, we were in the same group, and we hung out all the time and talked about the stuff all the time. So there is something to be said for a more frequent and more fraternal kind of relationship amongst the group. When I was trying to get people to talk about our subcommittee, it was hard,
Imagine trying to get 15.
Yeah. 30 cats.
Position, Darby.
Now, look, I hear you guys.
So those are thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great to have other thoughts from people about. I think that was an excellent point you made. The idea of brainstorming and just throwing out ideas of how to increase participation and increase exchange in a positive manner of ideas, whether they differ or not. So why don't you go ahead and ask for your ideas?
I think alcohol at the meeting is a bad idea, but
Continue. What else?
popcorn.
Popcorn.
David?
Okay.
What?
You did not say that.
No, Kelly and I like to eat, so it's a different, yeah.
So anybody have any other ideas about how we could improve our interaction, cooperation, and productivity?
Yes, start with our subcommittees. If we can get our subcommittees to meet and talk to one another, then they will come as a body to the entire meeting. But I will take it upon myself, to your point, Mike. I'll take it upon myself, and I'm doing this via email. I'll ask everyone for their phone numbers. And I will give you 2 phone calls prior to every meeting. If you do not come, I don't want to hear about this anymore.
Anybody else have any ideas?
I think by doing that too, you get people tend to be committed, and then okay, and people have other things to do and they may not be able to make it, and that's going to happen.
Right.
But at least you'll have a good idea that, we're going to have a quorum, and a productive meeting. So, and if you don't have a quorum, it may not make sense to meet.
Yeah.
Although, yes, we can still hash out things.
How many meetings we would not have had?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been keeping track of that. Today, I just happened to ask the question because it seemed like we were missing quite a few people. So,
Anybody else have any other ideas about improving our communication, interconnection, and attendance ratios?
I think there's carrots, but there's also sticks. So it could be if you don't attend a certain amount of meetings.
We can't start them. Not just.
Any other ideas?
Well,
Well, the brainstorming is, we don't answer that. with
No,
negative, We just listen.
No, I'm saying,
Yeah.
we definitely get started. And we have to have 15, correct? Right,
So-
Council Council Johnson?
We have to have
We
8.
have to have 15, right?
Oh, 15 people? Yeah, that's in the code.
Anybody else have any ideas about how we could improve?
I'm actually curious about our visitor, our Mount Vernon resident. What compelled you to come? And maybe we can bottle that up.
Right, so, in full disclosure, I'm here with Tamala, who I admire and who has thrown herself into this initiative being a relatively newcomer to Mount Vernon. And I wanted to learn more about it. I happen to be free this evening. So I'm here just to find out, how can I become more involved and understand the process, what's happening.
So I think the point there that what was done is that personal connection. I know I have like begged my neighbors to come, but I think that personal connection, and we all know a lot of people are trying to get somebody to come with us would help. Maybe. Any other ideas? Axel, you're quiet. No ideas?
Oh, I have plenty of ideas. You want to hear?
Yes.
I
We're
don't know.
brainstorming.
It depends.
Well, the brainstorm is very straightforward. Whenever you committed to being on this committee, you said you would show up. If you don't show, you're out. Very simple, right? I mean, we are all adults. We don't need to call them. We don't need to poo-poo them. We don't need to offer them popcorn massages and after parties. If you commit to come and you don't get out.
Anybody else?
I like the frequency, if the consistency and that's on your calendar, that tends to be good. If you do it once a month, then you lose the
I
connectivity
agree.
with people. But if you do it every week, you'll burn out.
Okay.
So I don't know how you
Every
come
month.
up and
Interrupting, remember?
Oh, I know.
keep practicing. You'll get there. I just, consistency, not too frequently that it's onerous for people. 90 minutes versus 2 hours gets my vote. Because there's a lot of chit chat and people go off. And I think if we were held to the 90 minutes, we do better. I like a standing meeting. I like sticking to an agenda. I like an agenda that has even a little more bullets on it so you move with time. 5 minutes.
That's not a bad idea. That's a good idea right there.
Conversation. And somebody has to time keep and say, oh, we have 4 bullets left and we have 3 minutes. What are we going to talk about? And what do we hold for next week?
Right.
That's going to fall on the note keeper, unfortunately,
That's very good.
unless you voted for a secretary.
Well, we got 6 minutes, 5
Yeah,
minutes.
can we get
And-
input from the other people that haven't spoken? What do you think?
Maybe a Zoom meeting on the off weeks, like.
That's a thought.
Ah, that's a good one.
We definitely get better attendance
It's easy.
at the virtual meetings,
no,
but
when
you,
we brainstorm,
but
we
hang
don't
on,
say
because
no.
you
In
can't
person.
vote.
In person has to be at least once a month then, and then a virtual compromise.
Yeah,
And that keeps your consistency.
that's
of
right. That would build that.
relationships.
You
Yeah,
cannot
being
vote in a
overly
virtual
demanding.
meeting,
Well,
just
maybe
keep
just
it.
You have to know.
What?
But maybe just between subcommittees. those Zoom meetings.
Subcommittees can meet as much as they want.
And should be.
Anything
Right.
else?
In terms of structure, what's the lifespan of a subcommittee? If the work was to review what was going on, you're gonna move forward to the public. When the subcommittee purpose seemed to be to review and make recommendations, why are they gonna keep meeting?
Well, they wouldn't have to, I guess, unless they'd want to
What's
revise.
the purpose?
And do we have somebody else that has,
I was gonna say the same thing for the subcommittee that keeps the teams together and whoever is the main person or the chairperson of that subcommittee will then speak on the behalf, so keep the,
with the agreement of the members?
yes, yeah, so that's the understanding and then everybody will be informed.
So there's a couple of ideas.
Mary, wait,
But-
are you done? She's not done.
No, so I was gonna say something with regards to the Zoom, but like, then I remember what you said, you cannot vote if you're not in person. But that will help with the subcommittee on Zoom, gathering information rather than being here on a voting time, you know? So good, thank you to that.
So.
Yeah.
Subcommittees can meet as much as they want. And once again, they can. And the purpose, so once the subcommittees, right, 4 subcommittees, we have submitted all of our recommendation. When Tamala mentioned about the public outreach splitting off into committees, then we would sort of reconstitute into 3. If we want to maintain our subcommittee culture and leave it at 4, I guess we can do that. But we're all always going to be in this together.
So I think that the upshot that we can recommend in minutes or is that we all felt that we needed to improve our connectivity. We had some suggestions for how we could do that. We all agree that we want to have better attendance, that we need in-person attendance to have a quorum in order to vote, but that we could do Zoom meetings off time, and that the more communication we have amongst ourselves, the better.
It might be useful too, when you're gonna do voting, if you send out the agenda with what needs to be voted on and maybe describe what the issues are, and then if the subcommittees are meeting, we have a better understanding of how, what's the context of how I look at this information.
Not a bad idea, yeah.
Well, I'm walking around here blind because this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So the more training and information and structure I get, the better I feel. Because
Great.
that might be part of why people don't engage, because it's hard. I've got acronyms flying around. I'm not clear what the structures are. I have some idea, but I'm feeling my way. And if I didn't have a lot of energy to do this, or it was overwhelming to me, I'd withdraw. It would be hard for me.
I would see that, yes.
And when we volunteered, there's a complete lack of clarity as to what the commitment is, because as an outsider, I don't understand the process.
Mhm.
That the committees had a life, where there would be subcommittee structure after the review process. The leadership and people with experience seem to understand this would be an essential function. As a newbie, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But I hadn't even considered that there would be that sub-relationship to a larger group.
Eileen, did you have any thoughts on the brains?
All right. Staying with Susan's 90 minutes at 7:29.
Got 1 minute, talk fast.
I thought this appointment even said 6 to 7:30 when the others said till 8, and I was like, oh, I was hoping we'll move it to that 7:30 thing.
I think it's usually done by 7:30.
frequent.
Like a speaker. It doesn't, I can't think of something really, well, actually, I
Oh,
can.
we
One
can.
time where.
I can think of-
Thank you.
Welcome.
So do I need to move to adjourn?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
We can't vote.
I can't vote.
But we can.
That makes my vote.